Victor Adetiba with ScrumLife.com, back with our book club. This episode is sponsored by Mansa Tech Training Academy. Link in the description. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Today we're reading another excerpt from the book, 97 Things Every Scrum Practitioner Should Know, Collective Wisdom from the Experts, edited by Gunther Varen. Page 16. Will Scrum work for multi-location development? Pete Deemer. Spoiler alert, yes. Scrum works great for multi-location development. However, Scrum is not the silver bullet that makes it magically work. Scrum is a very simple set of practices that together produce a high degree of transparency, showing us the reality of our situation more clearly. Scrum creates transparency around what we are able to do in 1 to 4 weeks. Scrum enables us to see clearly the quality and rightness of what we produced and the quantity we were able to finish. Scrum confronts us with the effectiveness of our practices, including the patterns of dysfunction and the mistakes we are making. Most importantly of all, Scrum gives us the opportunity to use these insights to improve in the next sprint. So the statement, Scrum works great for multi-location development, means that Scrum is great at clearly showing us all the dysfunctions and efficiencies we're experiencing. And distributed projects tend to have a lot of these. At its heart, software development is an activity of taking the product of human thought and logical reasoning and making it repeatable in the form of code. For a team to develop software, their ability to commune their thoughts through shared understanding, collaboration, and communication is the key driver of output. In multi-location projects, this activity is made most difficult by the myriad forms of separation faced: physical separation, time zone separation, cultural and language separation, and the difficulties that come with language and cultural barriers. The first sprint that a multi-location team completes is likely going to be a rich circus of dysfunction. And the likely conclusion is going to be that this just isn't working. That realization is a critical first step on the path to success. The next step is to enumerate everything that did not work well and formulate actions in the next sprint to make them work better. For example, it could be that in the first sprint, the product increment didn't meet the definition of done. In the sprint retrospective, the Scrum team identifies the major root causes, such as lack of a clear, common understanding of the sprint goal, lack of communication within the team leading to a lack of coordination, and lack of trust among the team members. As a result, actions are taken on each of these in the second sprint. For ideas, see the distributed Scrum primer. And that sprint produces slightly better results. As often happens in the subsequent sprints, other sets of issues become visible, and whole new sets of improvements are identified every time. The Scrum team gradually evolves, sprint by sprint, to a better and better way of working. Will Scrum magically make every distributed Scrum team effective? No. In fact, no methodology has the ability, although some make that promise. The radical innovation of Scrum is its rejection of the idea of a methodology-based path to success. Instead, Scrum is a simple framework built around inspection and adaptation that creates continuous transparency around the unique environment and characteristics of a given situation while creating the opportunity for improvement. The only question is how much bold action the team is willing and able to embrace. So in my experience, absolutely, Scrum works for teams that are distributed across different time zones and across different locations. I have still found, for the most part, that the teams that work best and the teams that were able to see the process with in person are the teams that have the greatest ability to make that incremental change more consistently, more gradually, and ultimately become some of the better performing teams. Not to say that a distributed team couldn't do the same, because during COVID, we were all faced with that struggle. And for a lot of the teams that I work with, we did see our development, our production, our delivery increase. However, I think that for the most part, we were lucky because we started as a team that was all co-located and moved to a distributed team only afterwards. I'm not sure how well a team that started distributed would do if the inverse were to happen, right? If we were to bring them into the same location and see how their work differed, suffered, or benefited from being co-located. That being said, a lot of developers and Scrum teams do prefer the remote work, but I can understand management's wish to have teams be able to be co-located. Maybe not necessarily for the same reasons. Some organizations and managers would rather have their team on site to micromanage them. But I think that for team building, for retrospectives, for collaboration, oftentimes the opportunity to work in the same office as your team is invaluable. And I would encourage teams, if they have the ability to get together at least a couple of times a year, more if possible, to experience working side by side with their team members. I'd love to hear your comments. Did you enjoy today's episode? What has your experience been working remotely during the pandemic, before the pandemic, and after the pandemic? Leave me a comment. Tell us what you think. I'm looking forward to seeing you in our next episode.